Now, we have a funny story. I did not know that there was a film directed by Richard Attenborough. And, that's, movies like, Bridge Too Far, called Shadowlands, where Anthony Hopkins plays author C.S. Lewis from Larne in Northern Ireland.
Aye.
So there you go. There is a Shadowlands movie with Anthony Hopkins in it. It's a bit different from the Shadowlands that we have, though. What on earth is all this, Matt?
The full cover's in there. If you into that. There you go.
There
That's the movie. This was a joke. The real story here is actually there's a 4chan leak that was posted like earlier today, or I think it was today. I don't know. Time doesn't exist anymore, but it's really we had a great time going over it, looking through it, and been like, this all sounds exceedingly plausible, and it's not a leak on like 10.0 or anything. It's a leak on what the initial plans were for Shadowlands, what happened, and then what happened to it, and some internal stuff. So it's absolutely very interesting, and also it's a much better game than what we got.
Yeah. So at the very minimum, this is a pretty brilliant way to weave everything we've got together and have it all make sense.
Yep.
I think that there's one stat that I just do not buy.
Yeah.
And if this is real, then I think it's a red herring. So it's interesting, but a lot of things really do match up and line up. And that's the bit that, if you were to read like only 95% of this leak and the one bit of info that I'm going to call up as being sus, I think you'd probably think this was real. I'll put it that way. So let's hop in. Right. So the claim is that Shadowlands was almost entirely rewritten 6 months before beta. So Val was the rune carver, the Maldraxi Primus was the jailer. Okay, so this bit, based on what I have heard on the Vine of the Grapes, I do believe that this is true, decently true. And then this, I also believe is true, because
we just discussed that,
just discussed that. You look at the leaked concept art, so I think there's plenty to that. Now, we're going to get into apparently what it was all supposed to be. So the focus apparently was on a war between forces trying to control the realms of death, the militaristic Maldraxxus, authoritarian Kyrians, indifferent natural order of Ardenweald, the Hedonites of Revendreth, the anarchists of the Maw, the insurgents of Thros, and the Devourers being let in via cracks in reality that are being caused by this entire conflict. And what we immediately thought, covenants make sense. If this is what it is, then the covenants actually do make sense, because it was one of the things I remember. Was like, I think it was like Noble and Preach drove really hard in this angle, and they're totally right. Where it's like, what's up with this covenant choice? We're all friends. We literally are helping each other on the daily. Why is it like this? So, makes you think, right? If there was more of an antagonistic setup, then the covenant choice would have been sensible. Now, apparently the real villains were Sarge Nathrius and his Dreadlords, Muzala and the Dead Loa, and then Gorak Tul and the Drust. The jailer was just that, a jailer. He actually was not the villain, but he was the jailer of the damned, and Sylvanas was meant to get her redemption arc earlier, and, to reveal to have done what she did in BFA to strengthen the jailer's forces, to fight the war for the afterlife on all of these fronts, lest let the laws of life and death in Azeroth be broken, and, the Forsaken, then they'd never be able to, truly die and be free of their endless torment. Which obviously is something that can loop back to what really spooked Sylvanas whenever she died atop Ice Crown after Arthas died.
Yep. I mean, what's the prison we're being freed from? That sounds like a prison.
Exactly. That that line, there's this world is a prison. It doesn't really make sense. There's a way that we can headcanon it making sense based on the first ones, right? Yeah. But in terms of the in-game story, the actual A-plot as presented, Sylvanas' prison line makes no sense, and her motivations still don't make any sense. I guess the novel's coming out soon. That's going to have to fix all that up. And if you think about this World of Warcraft Sylvanas novel, we don't usually have these mid-cycle novels. This is a novel that is clearly trying to clarify what's going on with the character. Yeah. I have to wonder if that's because Sylvanas just does not make sense. with the Shadowlands they've shipped, so they know they need a novel to flesh out all the details so that it can work.
Yeah, they have to patch it up in post via book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, apparently Oribos was never meant to be more than a transport hub between zones and was intended to be basically the Chamber of the Heart in BFA. Tazavesh, the Secret City, was the real hub, but at the time it was called Korthia, apparently, and it was not a dungeon, but it was the expansions hub. I mean, that would have been cool.
That completely makes sense.
What we know in-game as Korthia is actually part of a scrapped raid for the original 9.1 Thros the Blighted Land. Players would team up with the Winter Queen, Ysera, and Huln High Mountain to rescue Tyrande from the clutches of the Drust, with the reveal of the Night Warrior actually being the power of Thros and not Elune, with the shadowy entities of Thros influencing Night Elf culture long before the Drust, along with a connection to the Curse of the Worgen.
Yep.
Certainly Night Warrior being that, and the Night Elves being confused over that, I think would be a vastly superior story, because I mean, if you look at the Night Warrior, it's like it went nowhere. It went absolutely nowhere, and the lesson that Tyrande supposedly learned is it's just a rehash of the scenario that you do in Mists of Pandaria near the start, where Varian's like, no, be reasonable. And she's like, I'm angry. And then at the end, she's like, I see the value of being reasonable.
Yeah.
Because apparently she's like a 10,000 plus year old character who doesn't know about being reasonable and has to get schooled by a freaking 45, 50-year-old dude.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it doesn't really make that much sense. You kind of think about elves and you're like, elves, they have a lot of wisdom and experience. They should know not to be rash.
Yeah. So
who knows?
Specifically this with, obviously the Night Warriors, like, the fact that the Night Warrior part doesn't look very appealing. It definitely looks like it was supposed to be bad stuff. Absolutely.
Oh, you're bad.
So there's like, it's Elune just being a bit angry. But then it was the idea that it's part of Thros, because I've always thought that Korthia didn't line up with how it looked, how it's supposed to look.
You've always thought that.
It doesn't make any sense. Well, why is there trees everywhere? If it was Thros, make trees. Must do that. Must actually get footage from the BFA quest and compare visually.
Oh, big, yeah.
I should have done that for this, because that would sort of prove my point of, I think all of the trees being everywhere makes more sense for that case, because it doesn't make any sense. Also, I think someone in chat said, because Korthia, the City of Secrets, had no city. Yeah, so clearly it's not supposed to be that. It's not a city.
Yeah.
Like
Tazavesh, supposedly the original Korthia, was actually a city.
Yeah.
Big things.
Yeah, so I think that's all this stuff is substantially more interesting. It makes a lot more sense for tying it into actual Warcraft stories, tying it into what all of that setup in BFA for the Drust that went actually literally nowhere reasonable. All of the stuff that, because if you think of the timelines, if they started changing this, 6 months before beta, but all the quests were sort of done, then that makes sense for all of Ardenweald being kind of just like, here's the zone quest and it doesn't go anywhere. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like Ardenweald is completely pointless to the main plot, really. Like, I guess it's tied to like Ysera and all of that, but so much of it is like, oh, the Gorm are no longer doing their function. This isn't good. Oh, Devourers. Oh, the Drust. And the Drust, it's like, done.
Yeah.
Drust done super quick. And that's just weird considering the Drust were set up as a threat in BFA, which maybe would have suggested that they should have been a larger threat here. Mm-hmm. And it's like Gorak Tull. We could have had your man, Christopher.
Yeah, and
what do you call him? Christopher
Judge. I was going to say Christopher Dring. That's the VGC guy.
We could have had Christopher Judge. We didn't. And that's a big loss.
And that's the thing, because Gorak Tull was definitely been set up as a villain. And a notable one, because it had a name, had dialogue, had stuff that was more interesting than just, it's a bad guy.
Yeah.
It's obviously like I'm trying to think of other examples from BFA, but like the captain at the end of Freehold was just captain dude, but Gorak Tull was definitely more.
So
a lot more.
Tyrande would have been the second to last boss in this raid after losing control and becoming a masked slave to Gorak Tull.
That's a lot of stuff done.
And this plot line was kind of reworked into Anduin being possessed by the jailer. Now, what's interesting there is, like, if the jailer is just the jailer and he is not tied to the domination magic and the domination magic comes from the Primus, then, it's like, I suppose I could see that making more sense.
Yeah, so, like, are the masks that they use domination magic?
How does it work?
anything
What's going
related
on?
there. That seems like something they would have wanted to explore.
Yeah.
It's like, where did all these masks come from? Oh, they've come from the Primus. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so to continue then, we would, depending on faction, use a connection to Bomsamdi and the Loa, or the Druids of Kulturas, in 9.1 to make a safe hub in Thros, where we would level up along with quest progression, thinking of the Molten Front or Isle of Thunder.
We have nothing like that.
Yeah.
We've got Korthe instead.
While it never reached significant development before the rewrites, the original on-paper idea was 3 content tiers post-launch. Launch would deal with Denathrius and the Dreadlords, 9.1 Thros, 9.2 would be a Troll Raid, that got cut down into the other side dungeon against Muzala and his connections to the Lich King.
Yeah,
and then finally, 9.3's Eternity's End is where all of these conflicts would have allowed the walls of reality to break down.
Yeah, so I mean, the other side, obviously, for how long was... I mean, you'll see it if you look at our channel during BFA, the amount of stuff that was set up for Bonsamdi, for Vol'jin, for Muzala, and all of those connections, and they ultimately just kind of, it was just a wet fart in the end. It's like,
and tied up in such a neat bow, and it's like, there we go, done. Muzala, oh, he's chuckled, he's gone.
Yeah, that was it. It was like this really interesting villain that they'd built up for so long ended up just being, just a puppet of the jailer.
Yeah.
And is gone.
It's like, really? Even that setup in Legion and all, and it's just gone. Weird. Yeah, so I mean, I think that makes sense. So apparently, anyway, when reality starts to break down, the Shadowlands are appearing in the skies all over Azeroth, Outland, and Draenor as Devourers pour in, and the players would ally with the remnants of the old gods, such as the Klaxi, to combat an outer god.
Yep.
And is this where we maybe think about, I think it's some dialogue from the Paragons of the Klaxi fight, if memory serves, there's something there, because they're talking about like the sort of grander picture. The raid, though, would be a greatest hits road trip around locations in the vein of the Dragon Soul, but a larger scale as we stop Devourer rifts from attacking places like Thunderbluff and Grizzly Hills. This was never made it far before being scrapped. Funny, kind of similar to my Northrend idea for 9.2.
Yeah.
Fun. But I mean, this seems crazy, but this maybe seems like the appropriate level of crazy for a final patch, if you think about how crazy patch 7.3 really was.
Yeah. Would have done
Now,
a good
there's
job
things then that, like, these all make sense. Oh, yeah, so Underhaven here is saying, who is the Hand of Valor? Yeah. Like, Vol'jin was told by Aer that, like, his soul had been touched by the Hand of Valor. What does that mean?
Well, the Hand of... my brain's failing me, but I'm trying to remember exactly how Vol'jin's story ultimately unfolded, because it was to do with it was.
Hey,
trying to think, there's some involvement with Rastakhan and the big dinosaur law, but I don't remember.
Oh yeah, your man Razan, the Law of Kings.
So
the way that it basically gets tied up in a neat bow is Vol'jin becomes the new Law of Kings. Yes. And Razan, like, sacrifices, like, the last of his essence or whatever. And that's all, like, Ardenweald content.
Yep.
So, it's just funny that, again, that was another thing that was tied up so neatly, so quickly. It's like, oh, there we go, done, over, move on. And it just feels a bit weird considering the setup that was done. There's other things. Now, I should say, look, these all make sense. But also, if fake, then they are written to make sense.
Yeah.
So at least it's a creative writing exercise. But saying, Bane was meant to have a full questline involving his father and his ancestors finding a new path for the Tauren struggling with their identity in the Horde. And this is major because we were told that Vol'jin would find out the truth of his people. Now, there had been some theories going on. So we talked about this theory of jailer like Zoval being Anshe.
Yes.
And then also Himbo Juan. On Twitter, who's does quite a lot of like, the crazy. It's like
tweeting. Yes.
It's just let's go into the fucking madness realm. Here is a big tweet thread about a theory, and it's all fun. So there's a few people who have been thinking through, this. Just some things about like how in Eyes of the Earth Mother, Anshe is betrayed, that like, even just like the hole in the chest kind of match up with Zoval. We were then told that like Bane would learn the truth of his people. And of course, like they're an ancestor worshipping society, and Bane is going to the place where the ancestors go, seeing, Tauren memories be purged from Kyrians and shit. It's like, nothing was done there. So I think there's definitely cut content with Bane. I mean, They could never have planned to just have him sit in his ass. I think that they wanted to do some stuff with Bane that would tie, that would be involved with Anshe, so that we would then get dual minor lore progression of Elune via the Winter Queen, and then Anshe via Bane, that would then set up all of the Tauren creation story.
Yep.
And that would be relevant in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel just like, that's the thing where we like to clown on them for the inclusion of Bane, but it's like, in what universe would they bring all these characters and then do nothing with them?
Yeah, they evidently had a plan.
Yeah,
that they did not get to fulfill.
Yeah, and for anyone who's joined, this is someone posted this on 4chan claiming to have recently left Blizzard.
Yeah. Yeah, now Thrall. He was apparently meant to have a story, a questline involving Drekthar, who was originally going to die of old age during 9.0 and Duratan, which would sort of reconnect him to his roots and actually restore Thrall as a shaman.
Because that plotline never got finished.
Didn't. Yeah, that just
didn't happen.
Where's Thrall now?
He's doing shaman stuff in what do you call it?
Just he's in the raid. Just
he's throwing lava bursts at bats, and then Bolvar is using his two-handed hammer to hit them, and also there's holy magic, the holy hit effect from like Uther is the one that Bolvar has, which is just an interesting thing. But yeah, no, he's just there. He's in the raid.
Meaningful use of characters.
Indeed, yep.
Jaina was meant to have a quest line involving the Proudmoore family and her father's imprisonment in Revendreth, which, come on, that would have been the perfect follow-up to Jaina's Battle for Azeroth story. Yeah. But he would refuse to change and would choose Oblivion, but this was reworked for Garrosh. I don't really like the framing of that being a rework. That's something that could make sense for both of those characters, and I think the Garrosh thing, at least a fair amount of that was just an individual dev being passionate about the character and just feeling like, nope, I'm going to take it upon myself to make sure that Garrosh gets put to bed properly. And more power to that developer, because that they did. Yep. Anduin then, he was supposed to have a long quest line seeking his father's spirit for advice, along with Talia, who he would form a romantic relationship with.
They've been setting that up so hard.
Yeah. But there was indecisiveness then about a twist regarding Arthas being Anduin's real father.
Which would tie really well into all of the rightful heir of Lordaeron stuff that was going on that the Scarlet were pushing.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Which, of course, no one remembers this.
Yep.
I don't think barely anyone did a fucking video or anything on it, but we did one ages ago. The Scarlet Brotherhood pieces of text that were, I think, stealthily added in 8.1.5, or was it 8.1? I forget exactly.
It was one of the two, yeah.
But it's all that heir to the throne shit.
Yep.
That there's a true heir, could have been really interesting plot, where if they ever go for a really big political intrigue in Lordaeron, this stuff would have been the thing to do. And then there's just simple things actually, hang on. Canonically, what color is Tiffin Rin's hair?
I could tell you.
Because Varian's got black hair.
Yeah, well, brown, but yeah.
Brown hair, okay. Basically, are there any blondes?
Tiffin's blonde, yep.
Tiffin's blonde. Okay, so there's the ambiguity. There's the bit where everybody can bicker.
Yeah, she's blonde, and I think that's the comic.
There you go. So Anduin, you could have got it from there. Yeah, okay. But hey, classic, R plus L equals J style. Who's the dad?
Yeah.
This is important because kings and shit. That could have been a storyline that they were going for, but apparently no. Or maybe they'll still do it. Who knows? They also had the little tidbit of Terrash's crown being, I think it's underneath the lighthouse in Stormwind.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so they did that lore addition as well, and I just kind of think why? Could that ever be relevant? To continue then. So they had indecisiveness around this twist. I think that's a pretty fair thing to be indecisive around, actually. And Anduin questioning everything, and that kind of bring him closer to Talia, whose own father was the Lich King. So basically, they both have Lich King daddies.
Yeah, that would be...
Just one of them's blue, one of them's red.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's it's really kind of simple, but I think that would work really well. Where you have a point for them to bond over, and then you've got, Anduin gets a GF, and then everyone has a big celebration. That's a plotline for him. You get the experience of Anduin goes from little child lost using mind controlling pandas, and now he's a a warrior, priest, paladin man with a girlfriend. Nice one.
Yeah. I think it just, you have to do that without making her feel like an accessory. To like, an accessory to his story. But I think it's just, I like her character. I like the potential of her character. And I'm still quite salty that I don't really feel like she has been used much as a character. Like, she has some scenes in this patch, but it's like, for her finally seeing her father again, it's really not that much.
Yeah, it's very much they wanted to do this more, I think, but they couldn't, and they did. Because obviously, I think the dialogue in that quest is really well delivered, and it does feel nice. But it's like it's happening while you're doing things completely unrelated, and it just feels like they put it in, going, well, we have to address this, but we can't make the content we wanted to address it. So here you go.
Now, to continue some, things of honorable father keeps secret and dies. A little bit of R plus L equals J, which is R plus... Yeah, no, of course R plus L equals J. Matt, you'll have no idea what this is. Don't worry. It does make sense, though.
Yep, sure.
But no, the Thrones people obviously know what I'm talking about. So as well as a focus on the reveal that Varian always knew Arthas was Anduin's father, but that never made Anduin any less Varian's son, because, because honor and bravery is a choice. It's not something you're born with. I actually think that could have been a totally fine, good plotline. Varian content is good. Varian being Varian, people like it almost all the time. Yep. Something there could have worked out really well, actually. It's the sort of thing, who knows, right? You could maybe disregard this based on like an outline or whatever, but done well, that could be an excellent story. Very character-driven, very heart-driven, it could have been great. But anyway, according to this leak, these were all cuts and rewrites happened. There was a reduced scope and budget that meant they had to drastically scale back the expansion. Let's be real. Yeah? I don't think this is because World of Warcraft's, I don't think this is because WoW had its budget cut. I'd say it's probably because budget was reallocated to 10.0 or something like that. I mean, who really knows? Anyway, apparently there were daily quests designed to ground the afterlives more into the mortal worlds. And the only trace of this idea in the final game is the single quest to follow a Kyrian to the Redridge Mountains to see a man dying fighting a ghoul. That's actually my favorite quest in Shadowlands, by the way.
Yep, and they planned apparently a lot of them.
Yeah, apparently. And again, I think I've mentioned this every stream for the last 4 weeks. It's a great quest. God damn it.
Yep.
So originally, one of the plot lines was the Scourge running rampant, along with Shadowmoon Orc and Auchendoon Draenei death magic stuff running just haywire, because the events of the Shadowlands, that was meant to be the real theme of the expansion. That would have been cool. Yeah. And one of the things people are wondering is hey, the Scourge, there's no Lich King. There's no one controlling them. You know the way Bolvar warned us they would run rampant? Yeah. I think we know they haven't been completely cleansed from the planet. I mean, they certainly haven't been. We literally fight them in the pre-patch.
Yeah, so
we actually fact. If those ghouls are running around Redridge during the initial Kyrian campaign, when we are in the Shadowlands, then that obviously means the Scourge are running rampant in Azeroth.
Yeah.
And that's never been acknowledged or covered in the game outside of that, really.
No, because what they'll do is, right, so this is how it goes, right? The Crown of Wills is the anti-Helm of Domination. So that's going to be done to give all the Scourge their free will back. That'll solve the Forsaken problem, so all these Scourge will just be normal again, or some of their free will restored in freedom, and they won't be, the Crown of Wills will give them some will instead of them being mindless. And then that'll be the big fix. That'll be a whole bunch of Forsaken stuff gets added or whatever else. That's Sylvanas' problem solved of Forsaken, because all the undead are now, can belong to her or whatever else. Let's not think about what that does for the military might of the Horde, but that's kind of that solved up. And also, they can say, they weren't running rampant the whole time because time works weird in the Shadowlands. You were only in there for 20 minutes. Sorted. We've got that all solved. I think that's what they kind of have to do, to be honest.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, players essentially would be going to these little brave last stands, these little story vignettes to carry those dying NPCs to the correct afterlife. Basically, the player being a spirit healer. I mean, what more can I say? I think that as I've said every stream for the last month, that is the single best quest in Shadowlands by a pretty significant margin. And the idea, you know, that they had more of those planned and that unfortunate circumstances meant those couldn't happen, it's like interesting to me, I guess. You know, you could maybe take just, you know, not a full line, just a little bump of hopium. Just there a little, and then there's none left, right? But, you know, I'm okay with it. I like it. So apparently then, this was the most sudden and hasty rework in WoW's history. I mean, I've heard one or two things that would suggest that that's true, but again, you know, I don't really exactly know. Honestly, it's the sort of thing, I love to just go on an airplane and just be like, right, here's a list of X WoW people. I'm just going to go everywhere. But then, you know, everyone's going to be NDA'd, so I wouldn't get any information, and then I'll probably get sued somehow.
Of course, yeah.
So, you know.
Wouldn't recommend.
There goes that fantasy. But I just wonder, right? It's like, it would be so interesting to know what the plan was.
Damn right, yeah.
Because they must have had insanely big, ambitious plans. Like, they're exploring the afterlife. This is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for storytelling in this universe. And that there are those little glimmers, like the Redridge quest, just makes you think, what could have been? When they were just sitting down at the whiteboard, just idea vomiting, like all the cool shit they could do. Like, imagine how much there must have been.
Yep.
Right? It just kind of makes you sad that it's like their best. It's as if all of their best ideas and all the good shit just got cut. Yeah. And the reason why everything there is shit is because that's just like the assets and the stuff they had made that they had to, you know, they had to be like, we got no content. Shit. Do a few campaigns. Terran, help.
Yeah,
we need Synanix help, please.
Yeah, which would also, I mean...
Actually, fucking hell. Why is the A-plot something that primarily happens in YouTube videos?
Well, that's obvious, because they had made all...
Why is that not a quest?
Because they made the A-plot, and then decided it wasn't going to be the A-plot, and then they needed the cinematic team who are, you know, obviously a lot more agile in what they can do, because they've got until now to make the content, as opposed to, well, you can't, you know, you can't go back and change Shadowlands base content. You've made it, you have to push it out. So that's the thing. And that also might even be why there's no big cinematics, the big, like, old soldier kind of ones, because if they had written plot lines for that, but they couldn't tie them in game, then they just can't go ahead with them.
Yeah.
And that's a case where you can't just go, oh, we've suddenly shifted, right, big cinematics team, go and do this real quick, because that is, like... That's something you'll need to plan a long time ahead and work on for a long time.
Yeah.
And maybe they haven't had that opportunity.
So I think that they will have known that Shadowlands has been in a really rough spot for quite some time now, because the developers are always aware earlier than the players are, because, you know, it's like that Yoshi P quote talking about, like, you know, it's like that silent majority of people that just fade away from your game. Like, they can see that in the numbers, whereas all we can do is talk about our experience. And that just makes me think, right? Will they have a complete crazy bumper, an absolute, like, big amount of, just a big tasty of a cinematic in, you know, April 19th for the new expansion reveal? Because you think about it, previously, right, what did that cinematic team do? Well, they did the BFA opening cinematic, which, I mean, let's be fair, was so good that Coca-Cola decided to ape it for a really silly advertising campaign, if you remember that video. Yeah. But, like, they did that incredible thing. They did Old Soldier, which is, like, what, 21 minutes? 22 minutes? And they did the big Shadowlands CG. And they've done nothing since. Well, I mean, obviously, they're working on something, and that's what makes me think. Like, could they know that there's been, you know, such a rough situation for WoW? That, like, in April, they just, you know, do they need to just come out swinging?
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, it would be daring, or even the, I don't know. But, like, I think if the next expansion had more of those, like, marketing points to rally around, it would probably be in the best interest of the game. So I just wonder where those resources have been allocated, because if we think about other Blizzard projects, it's, I mean, fucking hell, man, wait a second. Hold up. Right, this is the big cinematics team. So what have they shipped? What have they delivered? Because they delivered Diablo 4. Mm-hmm. Holy fuck, that Diablo 4 trailer is, like, or cinematic is one of the coolest.
It's really nice, yeah.
So cool.
Really
like,
good.
when was that? When was the D4 revealed? Was that 2019? It wasn't 18, because 18 was the April, the guy in the red shirt. What is it about red shirts at BlizzCon? But you know, it was the out of seasons April Fool's joke. That was 18, right? Or was that 2019?
Time doesn't exist. Yes. No, I think it was. I think you're right. I think it was 2019 was Diablo, and then 2018 was the Oh No.
So if you just think about the sheer like density of super expensive cinematics that they will have made there. So what other projects will they be working on? Well, Overwatch 2 stuff. But that's not coming out this year. Well, okay, Overwatch 2 PvP probably will come out this year, but PvE is almost certainly next year. D4, I think that's probably 2 years from now.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the cinematic team working on? I wonder if WoW's going to, if WoW is really going to get a lot of their time because Blizzard's maybe looking at this and kind of recognizing like, WoW is our cash cow. We really need to make sure it's okay. Cinematic team go brr. I don't know, maybe.
Oh yeah, WoW Mobile as well, yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
They'll probably do a full cinematic for that to really push it hard.
I mean, they did for Diablo Immortal, didn't they? Did they have a wee cinematic thing for Diablo Immortal?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, apparently this was one of the more sudden and hasty reworks in WoW's history. Now, reworks are very common in games, by the way. That's just something that's worth saying, and it's not really a black mark. It's a very common thing.
It's a black mark if it results in a product that's not good.
Yes.
But if it's just, hey, we've reworked this because it was a bad idea, it's like Diablo 4 is probably a case of that where the ideas they tried were probably just not going to work out so well. So they went, we'll go back to it.
And sometimes the only
basics.
way to know that is to try, right? Anyway, so many scenes had dialogue, apparently, written with either no knowledge of who would be in the scene or, where or why it was taking place. So everything was super vague and non-committal, especially with the character development being cut. And I've got to say, I remember it's one of those stories that Kevin, who's writer on our games team, has. It was about somebody they know, like, taking the red pill on Joss Whedon content, where it just, read out a few lines and just said, so which character do you think said these lines? And then suddenly you realize that every single Joss Whedon character it's like, they're different technically, but any of them could have any of their lines.
Yeah, because they don't have a voice or anything.
And that's the weird thing about some of these Shadowlands characters. Like when you just have Bane going for the Shadowlands, they're like, this is not what? So I just have felt that with a bunch of these cinematics. They've been really like flat and kind of embarrassing. Yeah. And I wonder, if it's like the stuff that would have made those land, it just got cut. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, just no vision for it whatsoever.
Yeah, so from the initial reception to now, Shadowlands has been considered a wash, like Warlords of Draenor. We were just told to power through it, get over with it as soon as possible while working 10.0 at the same time. I think that is, whether this leak is true or false, I think that is the case.
Yeah, that's the Warlords Legion tactic, and it worked for them then, so.
Yes, because look, there's not 3 major content patches. This will have 1 tier less than BFA, and BFA itself was a troubled expansion. So even with the troubles of BFA, they were able to do 3 full content patches.
Yep.
Additional raid tiers beyond Uldir. Yeah. So when's the last time something like that happened? It was WoD. So I think that this is a very reasonable thing, leak or not. And if I was writing a leak that was fake, I would write that because it seems so plausible.
Yeah. I mean, also, I think this is a thing we see quite a bit in kind of AAA gaming at the minute, where a lot of it is just project fail, quick new project, because a lot of it's from the marketing perspective of cut and run. Cut and run or, GG go next is the kind of approach that like EA have been doing loads as well. And I feel like Blizzard, they're not doing that with Overwatch. Maybe they are by making it Overwatch 2, but you know what I mean. It's that thing of this is definitely like the strategic move that executives tend to make is this isn't going anywhere. Go try again.
Yeah, pretty much. So interesting stuff to continue then. Even without the scandals, this has been murder on morale, where there are so many points we want to fix / develop more before shipping it. But we are told the current engagement metrics make it a waste of time and resources are better spent working on 10.0 instead. Yeah. Now, this, again, is something that, even if this is a fake leak, that totally makes sense to me, because there are so many, missed opportunities in this expansion. And also, right, if we're going to be very, brutally honest with ourselves, and if you're to, using empathy and compassion, place yourself into that key decision maker who is looking at, who is in the middle of an expansion that is troubled, knows fully how much it sucks to be in the middle of a troubled expansion, and you're like, okay, the only way that I can have a team still working on this game is if the next expansion is truly great and wins them back. I have to cut this scope, and we need to make sure 10.0 is good, because if we keep on polishing this up, that's fine, but we've already lost people. You know, you look at the video comments, you look at the tweets, it's like it actually doesn't even matter in some ways how good 9.2 is or is not to so many people.
Shadowlands is dead contextually,
Yeah. It's like, how many times even in our content, we've talked about Zereth Mortis being our favorite patch zone in a long, long time.
I love it.
We're enjoying the raid, all of this stuff. You know, we're definitely not as happy as some other people online, but we are far happier with this patch than we were with 9.1.
Yeah, no, 9.1 genuinely killed the game for me.
Yeah. Oh, 9.1 did so much damage. Which, again, if everything in this thingy is true, that makes sense for 9.1, doesn't it? But there's so many people. It's like, regardless of what I'd say about Zereth Mortis or any of this stuff, it's like, no, 10.0 or bust. So it's like, if that's going to be the default response, which, by the way, that's a fair response to have, because you have been burnt and asked, and you haven't just been burnt 1 month, you've been burnt while they've tried to put you into a 6-month sub that you don't, we really don't feel like they're delivering good value on. Of course, value is in the eyes of the purchaser or whatever.
Yeah, but on average, yeah.
So I think we can all see how there is a logic to cutting a patch and making the next expansion really good.
Yeah, that's the correct decision, but it's painful. It's like the correct thing to do, like the hyper ultimate correct thing to do would be spend all the money they have, get their team, divert a bunch of resources into it and make Shadowlands good and work on 10.0. But that's not exactly realistic. And I guess this is the sort of thing that, maybe me and you have more of an appreciation of now that we have. I mean, we have scaled the team very slowly. Oh, extremely slowly. Brutally slowly.
And I'm probably going to just... Because honestly, right, part of it's like, okay, I'm going to be 28 this year. I need to start going fast. What am I doing? Why am I going so slow? Why am I so fucking poo brain?
Taking it easy.
These days, which, is all a big thought. But you can't just add more people. And that's actually the thing that I've began to appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
Blizzard could have infinite money and could still struggle to do this because money legit cannot solve every problem involved with scaling up a team to get more production capacity. Money seriously can't. It's actually at the stage where I'd almost think, would you not go with a very well-regarded outsourcing house? Give them a very clear specs for a project, and you get your stuff from them, and then you are good. That's almost certainly the faster way to increase your capability. Yeah. Here a really good example. Let's just say, not for our current game, but let's just say for our next game, we're changing some things up. We want to do some more animation and 3D work. What's going to be easier? It's going to be easier for us to do a spec sheet, go to Taunt Studios, who are mates of ours, be like, hello, 3D people, we would like to outsource this part of a project to you. Yeah. They will say, okay, here is a price and a budget. Is this good? We're like, shake hands. And then it's done. We have the thing. That is infinitely easier than scaling up our own in-house 3D capability.
Yeah, of course.
Because that takes ages, right? So that's like the response to the whole, you have money, just hire more devs. It's like, yeah, you can do that, but it actually takes a long time. And the amount of it's not time neutral. Hiring new devs. You might think, it just takes a ramp up time for that new dev to be good. Yeah, but what actually buys that dev the ramp up time? Turning to the experienced person being like, hello, experienced developer. I have this problem. Could you help me through this? And then, they grow and they learn. But in a way, at the expense of the amount of just grunt work that their mentor can do. So adding new people slows the team down. And I have even heard that they did the big push in MOP to try to increase the team headcount. And, maybe they didn't do it that well. I think we can all agree that was probably a good idea in principle. But that apparently backfired and was quite painful for the team. So it's very hard to scale a company. And I think it's even harder when, this is a game developer, and how many people get into game development because they're interested in video games, not because they're interested in growing and scaling a world-class company that's incredible to work at. Which then also means you don't have necessarily the excellent skill set required to rapidly grow a team. Right? It's like, is a gaming CEO who's just there for the games. Like, what's the job of a CEO? It's to officially allocate capital. Yeah. Are they going to be able to efficiently allocate capital as well as somebody who like is really passionate about that sort of thing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that
makes you think though, doesn't it?
That's ultimately where the problem comes in, where it's like, you know, Bobby Kotick's a great CEO. Well, was a great CEO. Maybe hasn't done a great job now, considering he's been slowly or rapidly forced to sell his company and leave. But you know, Activision was built from nothing, from literally like, here's a couple of assets I bought real cheap. Here's this big thing. But he never cared about games. Whereas, you know,
motherfucker just went to town on that like personnel bonsai tree.
Yeah, that's a thing where it's like, you know, that's the thing you need to grow a company. You need someone with that skill set, but you know, you can see where it goes wrong. Where it's like, you know, obviously there's a lot of problems with Blizzard. How much of that was Mike Morhaime not having the skill set as a CEO, especially when they had such explosive growth. Where it's like, well, okay, we'll need to hire people. Don't know how to do it. And then you have obviously the problem where the people who go for the like the CEO people don't care about the product or the people that much, and that's where it's like you need like a balance of perspectives at that top level as opposed to just one or the other.
Yeah. Now apparently none of the fake leaks have been right about 10.0 at all.
That's interesting.
To be suggesting no dragons. Interesting. There's only one way to find out, and that is time.
Yep.
And obviously, if it is dragons, then we're like, oh, this is all bullshit.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I will say maybe this is not they're wrong about everything. Maybe it's they're not right about the overall thing. It's like it could be the Dragon Isles, but it could be very different from the Dragon Isles. Maybe.
Yeah, and like you could have a thing about like, oh, we're going to do this like elf expansion in the Broken Isles and the Fallen Kingdom of or you know, not kingdom, you know, whatever of Suramar. And it's like, oh no, that's the Legion expansion. That's just a bit of it. You know, so yeah, there's also that.
Yeah.
Now we never described Eternity's End as the closing chapter of Warcraft 3 internally. This only showed up in marketing after media outlets began making attention-grabbing articles about one of our competitors ending a 10-year story arc. Personally, this was a misfire, trying to compare and contrast at a time when we honestly couldn't, so we came off looking desperate and needy. Even in The Office, the walking on water stuff is still joked about. And that's just the thing to believe, you know, they're also humans over there. They are going to laugh and, you know, joke at their own expense and stuff like that. Yeah. That's just how it is.
Yeah, they're going to whether it's good for them or not, they're definitely going to see everything people are saying about their game and their expansion online.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like they'll be the number one, and this is how it is for even lots of content creators. You know, they'll be Googling their own name. They'll be going on to 4chan, seeing what's being said about them. They'll be doing all this,
which is definitely just self-harm, but
yeah, 100% it is. Yeah, no, it is.
It can be useful.
So it's a funky little thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I'll say marketing totally like that. Marketing is, I think, fucking batshit stupid sometimes. It's wild.
Yeah.
I think WoW's marketing tends to be really cringe as fuck and feels super disconnected from the game sometimes.
I mean, that's the
like all that, you know, stand as one, defy death. Even in the patch when we're not defying death, we're literally fighting to protect it, right? It's like, what the fuck? So, yeah, that all makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, well, let me think. Was it Horizon Forbidden West? The buses around here all say "Rise above our ruin." That has nothing to do with the game whatsoever at all. It doesn't. It's just words. And then what is it? Rise Tarnished is what a band Namco have marketed Elden Ring with. You're like, that's not how the game feels at all to play. What are you doing?
It's like also how AMD marketed the Zen architecture. The whole Ryzen. That's why it's.
At least that worked out.
Yeah. But yeah, it's quite funny. That's just to say. Trust marketing to. I mean, it's either that, or maybe it's just trust fucking tasteless normies to outweigh people with taste. That's a very elitist statement of me. No. But frankly, I see stuff like that friggin' trailer they put out that's all like, you know, and you're like, man, what is this? Why are, you know what? Just bring out the dubstep. Let's go. Let's make it just like that really bad Warcraft movie. Do you remember the Warcraft movie trailer that just got all like fucking electronic and shit? And we're like, what? No, this isn't it. This isn't it. What are you doing? Marketing people. Why have you decided this? Or even trailers. You know, it's like, oh my God, take anything you like and take the trailer for it. And the trailer for it's going to be, it's like, you can't show your friend a trailer for something you're interested in because the trailer is probably going to be so cringe. Right. So, I mean, I don't know what's up. But anyway, yeah, marketing weird. And I would not be surprised if this kind of thing happened. Right. This like Endwalker is wrapping up a thing. So, how about we double their 10 years and do 20? Yo! It's very silly. Okay, the FF14 trailers are usually pretty good. But you know what I mean? Like those trailers where, the trailers where you can tell like dialogue isn't even correct. And if you actually look at the dialogue and then the lips that are moving in the trailer, it's just stuff that is being spliced together completely. Like seriously, try to freeze frame some trailers and go through them. You'll be surprised how much of that is just editing tricks that, you almost like don't really, pick up on until you like actually stop and look at it. Because I guess that's the thing with, with video editors. They can do a really good job.
Yep. Oh man.
But that's because your brain is a rationalization machine. So it wants to make sense of what it's seeing.
Of course. Shad, you've just killed my brain by reminding me of that.
Oh shit.
Doom Eternal's launch trailer was had a rap song in it. When Doom Eternal's music is not as good as the first ones, but still incredible, and obviously based in the metal history of that series.
It is the metal,
and it is incredible. Like, it's people are so mad about that, rightly so.
Yeah. Just those times, just like, hey, marketers, come on, respect the people making the game. Oh dear. So 9.2. Now this going back to the leak again, and I say leak, it's an unverified leak. It just happens to be interesting and well written. I will say that some of this is where this is where I fall off personally. 9.2 was the lowest returning user rate of any content update in the game's history. You know what? We could test this. We could test this because we have the numbers of initial patch 9.1 in terms of raid participation. We could very easily get the initial stats. So actually, we'll probably do that as a future video. That would make sense. I wouldn't be surprised, but a part of that is just always going to be because it's later patch. It's just more opportunity for people to leave. I think even in really good expansions, a degree of that has happened. Anyway, apparently lower than even the patch 6.1 Garrison update. Now, here's the thing. That's not a fair comparison to me, because even at the time of the Garrison update, like that was close enough to WoD launch.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would actually even be a fair thing. We expected lower interest from players, but never to this degree. The sentiment from certain people in a leadership capacity I can only describe as spending their days huffing their own farts laced with gaslighting and toxic positivity is that this is less blame on their part and more blame on certain influential content creators and streamers choosing to put a spotlight on competing products. And what this means is that, we did a clip and you convinced Asmongold to actually buy the build on FF14, and this is all your fault. And I think the assassins are going to come for you any minute, man. You're gonna get assassinated, Matt.
Try me.
We're actually quite worried in the office. Over the last few days, I turned the lights off and he was actually like shimmering slightly. He seems to be absorbing like all of this soul energy. I'm getting really worried. It's like all of the... I don't know if he's got to deal with Yoshi P and like they're sharing the soul funnel or something, but it's not cool. Matt's getting too powerful. He needs to be stopped before he takes out any other companies. It's getting worrying. Brutal. What's this? None of us grunts liked what happened with Sylvanas any more than you did. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not going to say anything more. I would say that certainly most content creators will also know this, just because, I see what Towley says, and it's like almost that's part of the reason why I'm willing to be like a little bit more wink, wink, nudge, nudge about things I've heard, because it's like, well, fucking Towley says this shit all the time. So, obviously there's bits of chit chat that seems to get to people, and yes, I have heard a lot of chit chat that it was not happy days and everyone's just, holding hands, dancing around the fire, all happy. No, I think all of this stuff has been very, look, the WoW team is comprised of WoW players. This has been very controversial for WoW players. Obviously, it'll be very controversial within the WoW team.
Yeah, it's also comprised of people who play other games a lot of the time, and there's a lot of FF players in the WoW team as well.
There is?
Yeah, turns out the individuals can't be blamed for a group problem, I guess.
Well, that's it. Yeah, you can have a lot of group dysfunction.
Yep.
Like you could get imagine this, right? Like a university project with, it's like half of the top people in the class, but they don't have a cohesive vision. And, egos get involved and they bicker amongst each other. And it's like they're going to massively underperform. Whereas a bunch of average people just working together are obviously going to excel. Don't expect WoW to show up on Xbox, even post-merger. The game's entirely designed with add-ons in mind. It has been for as long as I worked there. I wouldn't be surprised. But I think it would make sense for it to come out on Xbox, actually. Because, look, it works for FF.
Yeah, it's a case where they would need to make major changes that actually happen, basically.
Yeah. So 2021 was the first time since I began working at Blizzard in 2011 where the term free-to-play was ever brought up. Don't expect this, however. Sub numbers are at their lowest, but the WoW token and cash shop are extremely profitable, so expect more content in the store in 10.0. I mean, that makes sense anyway. Yep. We've seen there be more, like there's a paid transmog in the store recently. I think actually one of our news things today is going to be the cat bundle.
Yep. The cat pack.
Which is going to feel a bit iffy to the people who bought the cat full price a few months ago.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, on the topic of 10.0, apparently the internal codename is Paradox. We'll find out why in April.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting, considering we talked about the word Paradox earlier today in terms of the Deaths of Crummy setup.
Yeah. We have spent more time in 10.0 than the entirety of Shadowlands. The leaks for Cataclysm and Wrath sucked as a developer. Oh, so just that they fully got leaked?
Well, yeah, those big leaks on there.
Yeah. It's funny. WoD also got humongously leaked. It's just nobody believed it.
Yeah.
What a curveball.
That's so funny.
I'm glad I'm working in a better place now, but I still don't want to post a bullet point list of things we worked on to ruin the surprise. But no tinkers. We honestly have never understood the obsession. High elves we get, but something about tinkers drives people in the forums crazy. Yep. People want to tinker, man. Now, here's the bit that's the biggest.
Yeah, it's I think there's a couple strikes here, but this counts for like 3 strikes alone.
Yeah, this is it for me. Apparently the sub numbers are just under 400k. 9.2 saw an uptick of around 20,000 players. Bullshit! Apparently this hit the team morale really hard. They will come back when we release something new, as always, one of the mantra, but clearly not the case. I mean, I know that this is our heads in the sand. They will come back. I know that's been a thing, but here's the thing. Sometimes you actually need something like that to be able to just fucking go forward.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, cool. We can either have a convenient life so we can get our job done for 6 months, or we can just fall to despair.
Exactly.
Which obviously is not really going to be productive.
Yep.
So I think this is bullshit.
Oh, it's complete. There's
total bullshit.
There is one possible way I think it might not be complete bullshit, but it's so out there, which is they're only using the Western sub numbers, and the game's substantially worse than anyone genuinely thinks it is, because our estimations were like 9.1, which was pretty bad patch all things considered. Our estimation is like 1.2 mil, somewhere between 1 and 2 mil, somewhere roughly around there, based on character activity and stuff like that. So it's like there's no way it's under 400k.
And if I remember some of that data, it would be pretty hard. That was one of those metrics, because I think it was based on characters and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a metric that's more accurate the closer you are to the start of an expansion.
Yeah.
So I don't actually think we could run the same numbers for 9.2. Now, I will say, I have heard so many people say 9.1 was just the nail in the coffin for them.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if there was a tremendous fall off in players between those patches, but I just don't buy that.
No,
I do not buy that whatsoever.
No, it's nowhere near that low.
And then Future makes a video about this. I just want a panda wife. Says this is this the leaker?
No, this is someone else. Someone just posted in the thread.
And in fact, this is one of the more acceptable images you'll find in 4chan.
Yep,
just dicks, everywhere. There's so many dicks. Yep. It's a crazy place, that 4chan. But also, it's a place where plenty of leaks do come from. So we thought it was fun to go through this. To be honest, right? Look, if this leak was only this shit, we would not have at all covered it. But it was just that given the previous topics we'd talked about and the this like narrative stuff, because this as a fake leak can only survive by drawing lines, drawing parallels between like plot threads that could have been expanded upon more. So in a way, this is more of a representation of the potential of the Shadowlands. I think going through this, we can all see, there was real potential there. There was other things that could have been done. Going through the the Wowhead investigation into is the jailer even the jailer? No, the jailer's not who originally the jailer was going to be. Like, all of these things just kind of tell us something else going on. Mm-hmm. There was something more, something different, something changed.
Yep. So I guess it's that case of it's not maybe it's not super important, but it's fun to think about.
That's it.
And if it turns out this is the part that annoys me. If this is actually their plan, do you think it would be worse for them to say, hey, here's what we plan to do? Or better?
See, the thing is, if they canonized that was their plan, what they would then do is damage the foundation of all the story going forward. So in a way, they kind of can't acknowledge that.
Yeah, but at the same time, should they be making the long-term play of, worry about that, or should they be going for the, please, players, please trust us. Please trust us. Please, we had an idea and it went wrong.
Yeah.
Please. Because otherwise, if it's like, well, if they're just going to say, no, we planned this the whole time. Like, if you planned that, I don't want to buy 10.0.
That's exactly that's exactly why I'd be like, Ian, you can't say that in an interview. This doesn't feel like it was the plan. This stuff isn't good. Take ownership of your loss. Don't pretend that the loss was all part of the plan. Yeah. Like, if you want...
like the premise.
Yeah, it's like if you like, maybe that is the truth, and that's unfortunate. But it's like, even strategically, you want people to have this like possibility space where we just are in the bad timeline of what could have happened.
Exactly.
That's really important because they need to have hope that it could be the good timeline next time.